Hi guys, Ryan from Gun University. We are now at the last part of mounting the scope to the rifle. We covered in the first video how to get the right components to mount it. In the second video, we covered what tools you need at a bare minimum and what tools I think are handy to be able to mount the scope properly. We then went through from beginning to end exactly how I mount scopes to a rifle. And now I want to talk to you about some troubleshooting things that I look for as this rifle is going to be aging with me as I shoot to make sure things are still fine. One, occasionally you should be checking your torque settings. I used to be crazy about this when I was in the military, and I would check the torque every time I took my rifle out to the range or every time I took it out to go shooting and do something. I'd take the rifle out of the case, I would take my torque wrench out, and I would check my 65 inch-pounds on my rings. I would make sure that the rings didn't back out and things like that. I don't think you need to do that every time. And as long as you follow the steps I talked about by using some of the blue Loctite, even though some of you are going to be mad at this, I think it's trial and error, guys. I've seen this fail so many times. You're going to go a long way. So common errors I'm going to see. One, if you have a rifle already and you didn't follow these instructions, or you're trying to help somebody else with their rifle, you have to start to make sure the rifle fits to them. If I'm seeing bad groups, or if I'm seeing an uncomfortable shooter getting frustrated or having a hard time fitting the target, the first troubleshooting thing I'm going to do is make them close their eyes, get behind the rifle in as relaxed and natural position as they can. I'm going to get down in front of them and ask them to open their eyes. And when they open their eyes, I want to watch. They're either going to do this or they're going to move their head to try and see the scope. The second I see that, that's troubleshooting issue number one. You should not be moving your head from your natural position to be able to see through the scope. If they're doing that, if you're doing that, stop. Fix it with where the scope is mounted, with how your buttstock interacts with you, with something, or else you're not going to be successful. That's number one. Number two is making sure those torque settings are still good on the scope every once in a while, because even if you check the rings, it's very hard to check the base. I couldn't get into these screws on a base right now if it tightened to my rifle that way and check it. That's why I like Loctiting it. There's been plenty of times I've walked over to a student that was shooting all over the place. I grab the scope and do this, and I can hear it go click, 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 because the base came loose on the rifle, or because the rings came loose, or the scope actually twisted in the rings. So make sure these things stay tight. A little trick I use is a paint pen, one of those like actual pens with a ball inside. You got to shake the paint up, or you can even use white nail polish if you get some. I like to take that white nail polish brush and touch it right at the corner of the screw, the edge of the screw and the ring, and the same thing with the base. That way, if that screw does end up getting turned or loosened later, I can see that that line has been broken, and I can just visually inspect and see that everything's tight. Some people think it's ugly, but I think missing the target's worse, so I don't mind putting it on there. So stop and make sure that everything stays tight, especially after years of shooting. Make sure that the rifle still fits you. And guys, follow this way, and you are going to be way ahead of many other shooters that fight doing this stuff for years.